Yeah, my name is Bo Sandoval. I am a 25-year veteran in the strength and conditioning field. Currently working at Texas A&M University. Um, I primarily specialize in the physical preparation of athletes from all walks of life. Throughout my work history, spent predominantly a lot of my time in combative sports, wrestling, boxing, taekwondo, judo, fencing, but also quite a few years through the university ranks with court sports and field sports at Belhaven College, the University of Michigan, the United States Olympic Committee headquarters in Colorado Springs, and the UFC Performance Institute in Las Vegas, Nevada, prior to coming to College Station, Texas. Um, I would say my upbringing has a lot to do with my infatuation with performance outcomes. Growing up in a blue collar household in Louisiana, being active in sports, both parents very active in sports and sporting cultures, and then later on pursuing degrees in exercise science and sport management has kind of led me to where I'm at today. I would say every practitioner from all walks of the performance world, they're going to go through a learning curve first. So they're trying to refine their skills as a practitioner, how they deliver those skills, how they make an impact, how they influence performance outcomes. And so as they're refining their skills, as I did, there gets to a point where you start to make other observations, and you're interacting with other professionals that specialize in some different areas, and how those start to intertwine and cross pollinate. And so in the beginning, as a strength coach, first thing I learned was stimulus. How do you provide stimulus? How do you provide training in a progressive approach that could yield some results? Most of us cut our teeth and learn off of young individuals, which are the most resilient. They're at the most resilient time of their life as adolescents. And so you can get away with a lot. I would say you don't have to be as conscientious about nutrition and rest and recovery. Those are the most robust, resilient human beings on the planet. As they start to refine, though, and you start to climb into the upper echelons of the competitive realm, and their goals and objectives start to get more finite, we start to figure out that there has to be precision in the approach when it comes to preparing someone for elite levels of competition. And so, and through moving through my career, I would say I got really slapped in the face with it when I got to the U.S. Olympic Committee in Colorado Springs in 2007, primarily working with the national wrestling and national boxing teams, along with indoor volleyball. And at that time, seeing not only were our athletes at that level going through stimulus, they were going through extreme amounts of stimulus, not to mention traveling all over the world to play in various World Cup events and compete in various World Cup and international events. So changing time zones, changing training frequency and locations, which kind of throws some kinks in things when, especially if you're used to a very consistent place, a very consistent time frame, a very consistent schedule. And so what you learn during that is, well, how do I manipulate all of these variables so that we can still come up with a performance outcome? And so stimulus, while we've learned it and we know how to apply it, now I have to think about, well, what are the repercussions of it? How do I get an athlete to bounce back from it so they're ready to do it again and they can be ready on demand when it's time to compete? And so that's when you really start to, or at least that's when I really started to understand having, some will call it holistic, some will call it a interdisciplinary, but having an approach to performance that isn't one-sided. And I think the first thing we have to recognize is that all stimulus requires energy. And so understanding fueling, and I will tell you, whether elite or amateur athlete, I've never met an athlete that was thoroughly literate in nutrition, and particularly how to fuel prior to and post activity for recovery. Every single one that I've ever met across my 25-year career has had to go through an educational curve on understanding what that is. For some, the curve is even deeper, just learning how to eat their 3 square meals a day, or maybe good breakfast habits, or good pre-bedtime habits, or good hydration habits. So there's a massive learning curve on the fueling side. Well, then, depending on where they come from and what their background is, there may be an equally massive learning curve on the training side. So not only it's not like we can just step in there and just start dumping training on them. We have to identify where they are and meet them where they're at. with precision so we can supply stimulus that's actually going to transfer into a wrestler winning a medal in an Olympic Games, or a volleyball player being ready to play, 5 straight games in a match in China, on demand. So that's where I learned that it takes a village. It takes a number of different assets in terms of pouring in and educating an athlete, because ultimately athletes are going to have to, and I think this is important, what the SPARC community can do is educating athletes on how to endure the process, because no matter the sport, they are going to spend way more time on the process than they are competing. If you look at just the annual year, and even a high frequency sport like basketball, they're going to play a lot of games. They're going to play a lot of practice way more than games. They're going to train way more than games. And so educating them on how to use that process, how to manage the process, because ultimately when it comes to game time, we're trying to get an athlete there as close to their 100% as they stand as we possibly can. And so that has to do with the planning. That has to do with the strategy around training, the strategy around fueling, the mental strategy on how to approach training, how to deal with fatigue, how to deal with stress, how to deal with travel. And so that multidisciplinary team is something I've grown accustomed to, got exposed to it with the U.S. Olympic Committee. We were able to build a pretty interdisciplinary team at the University of Michigan for about 7 years while I was there, as well as, I would say the closest and most thorough thing I've ever been around was at the UFC Performance Institute in Las Vegas, where we had a very tight-knit performance team that was involved in every decision-making process when it came to providing training for an athlete.